My Lords, I rise to offer Green support for Amendment 20 while continuing to stress our continued opposition to the entire bill. Now, I think the argument's already been powerfully made for Amendment 20 that Clause 3.7 not to be in this bill, but I just want to make three brief points. The first is the point about international law. This has been powerfully made by many noble lords already, but you don't have to listen to me on this. You can listen to Alicia Kearns MP, the chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, who's pointed out that as the bill is written, it constitutes a departure from British foreign policy that, quote, puts the UK in breach of its commitments under UN Security Council Resolution 2334. Now, the second point that I want to make picks up a point raised by the noble Lord Oates. We have seen changes over the months in the British government's rhetoric, at least, certainly, if not its policy when it comes to the issue of arms sales to the Israeli state, which is only going to become more legally, diplomatic and politically pressing. But we're not here talking about policy. We are talking about law, something on the statute book that remains until the law is changed. The convention, of course, is that no parliament binds its successors, but we know how time-consuming, how energy-consuming it is to change past errors as circumstances change. Now, the third point I want to make is, and no one else has made this point, but I'm afraid I have to, is to refer to what's happening right now as we speak. Hundreds of thousands of people are in desperate fear, with nowhere left to run, nowhere to seek safety. The Israeli state has seized the Rafah border crossing. Now, there are a couple of figures that haunt me. One of them is, of course, the death toll, approaching 35,000 in Gaza. But another figure I saw last week is that 5% of people in Gaza have been killed or injured. My Lords, that is a deeply shocking figure. Now, there are many horrors around the world. We hear little enough in your Lordship's House and elsewhere about Sudan and South Sudan. As Greens, we're always seeking support to focus on the massive human rights abuses in Saudi Arabia. And of course, I have to put the situation of the people of Afghanistan, particularly the women of Afghanistan, into this list. But the noble Lady Baroness Noakes referred with displeasure to what's happening now in our universities, and indeed in universities around the world. What we have is mostly young people expressing their horror as what is being done to an occupied people, of whom 5% have been killed or injured. And I believe they should have the right to do that, and the issue of universities we're about to come to shortly. I must stress that the horror and the anger must not be directed to the wrong targets. But we are seeing people expressing their humanity, their care for others, particularly the most vulnerable. To suppress that is indefensible in general, but to pick on an area where there is now so much suffering at this moment makes Clause 3.7 particularly indefensible.
My Lords, I would just like to add a few points.